Right, what's up, yins guys? Time for another video, and I'm trying to make another video to take a few shots at some of these things I'm seeing on TV and in articles. Good Morning America, I think the other day. Oh, this increased kids in crisis and depression on the rise, and they're putting that on there to introduce what they're already been introducing, but introducing more of. The propaganda ads, how people need a magic drug, and now when this other magic drug doesn't work, take another antidepressant over top of this other antidepressant and say, oh, it's a chemical imbalance. It's like bullshit. Okay, the way this is a very double-edged sword when I say this, but the reason why a lot of these kids are depressed, and it's not just the misfit kids, it affects even secretly or gets let out of the bag, in so many words, with some of the more popular kids, because these more popular kids kind of oppress the lesser financial class kids, and that intellectual or physical bullying is part of the depression for these other kids. But these other kids that might do the other kind of bullying, even if it isn't physical bullying and the belittling, because they are depressed too in the same way, and they show it because they do their bullying. The hierarchies in the school. They trying to smoke screen the depression they have, the crystal clear realization they're afraid the lower classes are going to know that, when they persecute the other kids, mommy and daddy got money. Well, some of the lesser kids figure it out, and they fucking know it. It's like, even when I was younger, you got parents that are financially up and down. Shit happens, people get laid off. And the other kids just kind of move to another neighborhood or something, where, while the ones think they're better, or they think they can treat the others like shit because mommy and daddy got money. But bullshit. Some of the lesser kids know that mommy and daddy don't really fucking got money. Mommy and daddy is actually a debt slave living on credit, and and even some of the parents can get very, what do you call it? Some of them, even these parents are even maybe a little drugs and alcohol. Remember the old ads, I seen as a kid in the late early 90s, guy with this drug paraphernalia or whatever. Oh, who taught you how to do this stuff, huh? All right, you, man. I learned by watching you. Yeah. But anyway, these parents need something to kind of calm their nerves, because maybe they're working for some boss that they really like to, And the kids don't figure that out until they get older, and maybe they're working their first job. Maybe they'll have friends and shit, and they find out that, their parents know this, and they don't want to tell them yet that sometimes a job, people are acting like overgrown school kids, and you almost gotta be able to intellectually block a different kind of bullying, heckling like school kids, you know what I mean, and intimidation, and people trying to get you fired or whatever. And then these people have kids, right, and they don't want to show this to the kids or whatever too. And the kids don't realize what goes into, they're mommy and daddy is at least a debt slave. Some of these kids are greedier than others. They want this and that. But they don't realize later on. Oh, when they do figure out later on when they're older, what goes into giving these kids the clothes and all these expensive ass shoes that they want. Which when I was younger, I wasn't into that. I was persecuted because I rejected half of that shit. You know what I mean? Nothing I said or did was ever right, you know what I mean? Now you're reading these articles now, these different people, the seeing kids, the goths, this or that. I just seen the articles for years, ever since I got, had the internet, when it came out and all that stuff too. And I'm like, oh shit, how shit changes now. But mommy and daddy is a debt slave. Mommy and daddy don't really got money, or even when mommy and daddy got the lesser job, working a minimum wage job, living on credit. Well, how much goes into having that car, And then the kids that persecute the other kids, they're no fucking better because they don't realize they got parents that they really gotta sweat it to hold the job and put up with and have to hold their tongue with certain people that they'd like to punch out, or if they do what they really like to do out there in a workplace, then they'll never work anywhere again. Some kids realize it more than others, so. And then these kids, different walks of life, they sit there in their rooms, right? They realize that there's some law they have to go to school whether they want to or not, because somebody made a law somewhere if nobody was forced to, okay? It's like the YouTube video, The Story of Your Enslavement. That, yes, and to a certain point, the school was an indoctrination pen. But at the same time, it's a double-edged sword. If you want to be fucking fair and not call it a conspiracy theory, it's a human farm. All the countries are actually farms. Even your criminal subculture and drug culture, it's human farm. If you hate the police and like the other lifestyle, guess what? There's a daddy that you gotta obey that's like the police that can do you just as much damage or harm or more to you socially, if not physically, if you don't obey them. So, yeah, you don't like the rule of law that's here, and which is very flawed and broken and corrupt. There's another, yeah, you go to the other culture, act all tough, but yet there's a daddy somewhere, especially in the cities, that you behavior or conduct that codes that you gotta follow, so you're not really safe. You gotta, but okay, you Ricky's kids realize in their rooms, yes, of course you got to go to school, right? Because point they make a law for that, because otherwise, if nobody chose to, they'd all be dumber than a box of rocks. You wouldn't be able to fucking read or basically count. Then in the long run, of course, you'd give somebody a $20 bill to buy something at a store for $5 or something, like a gallon of milk, and if you didn't know how to count and know the difference, people can cheat you, you know what I mean? Everybody knows that, but yet, as a kid, it takes up all your time. Everybody's anxious for summer vacation. Ooh, I can do whatever I want. Stay up late, watch TV, go hang with my friends, but yet, even when you got more freedom during the summertime, right? It feels like you never have to go to school and wish you never had to do again. There's still a box. You get more freedom. Even during school, these kids realize you've got to go to school, but they got to be home a curfew a certain time, which is natural. But then even with summer vacation, and there's that dread inside your hearts that they figure out what their parents, that security in that house, that room, that confined room, that box that they're in, which it's a box the parents are in, then they're going to realize later on that they're going to have to eventually not only have to put up with going to school and they got summer vacation to look for one that, they get old enough, whether they graduate from school or however they're out of school, eventually they have to be able to get old enough to get a job of their own and wonder what choices they're going to have. It depends. You're going to go to college, you're going to do this or that. And depending on your parents' financial your level financially and all that stuff. Or you could be in that financial bracket where celebrities are finally getting indicted for bribing their kids to get in fancy schools, and so they can skate through it and not really know nothing. Yeah, and there's that thing there when they get old enough to go to college, people that bust their ass for anything. You're taught that you have to work hard and strive for everything, but yet the ones that they find out that it's not true at all, that everybody really works hard for anything. They realize from when you're even freaking school, Mr. or Mrs. Good Looking, or because of you're handed something because of who you know what I mean? And they learn that as kids. They hear their parents talking, you know what I mean, too. There's that dread in the back of their mind somewhere that, yes, they have a room, they got curfew, got this and that. And, well, they realize from one point, I think they're realizing, like the YouTube video, The Story of Your Enslavement, that from time that you're born, yes, there's a law that the parents are responsible for you by law, of course, or by penalty of law in certain cases, but yet they realize that really until they're old enough to get a job, which at the same time they dread, they wonder, oh shit, Or I'm going to have to eventually manage these bills on my own and other reality, which the parents had to deal with. Oh, and they're taught too, different expectations that, yeah, you got to find somebody to have babies. And it's you got things drilled in your head, whether you grow up in the home that has Cornerstone television or TBN on all the times, the high class Christianity, or if your parents are in that crowd, right? And they are all living on credit, they can get laid off someday, or you're just at lesser financial level, and if you got the parents that read the Bible, but yet at home they go to church, and then at home they scream, swear at each other, and chain smoke, like you get some of them. But there's that realization, when they're a teenager, that yes, they're responsible for you by law, right? But yet at the same time, they fucking own you. And their parents, your parents are your owners, they're responsible for you by law, but yet their parents were once kids and even babies once, and they were owned. And then when you get old enough to get out of it, somebody else owns you, and can tell you where eventually how much, no matter how hard some people may, how much energy somebody put into something to get somewhere or whatever too. There's a lot of people mysteriously just seem to skate right through things and get in somewhere, not because they work hard, because of who they know, or because they're Mr. or Miss Good Look. Look at a book called The BS Syndrome by Victor Salupo. Yeah, The BS Syndrome. They ought to reprint that and reissue it for this time, this day and age. The BS Syndrome talked about Mr. or Mrs. Good Looking, people compelled to give you things. Which, yeah, they should fucking update that book, because whether you get the young kids that you're seeing now, that are social media influencers, celebrities, the social media influencer, when the BS Syndrome book was actually written, they gotta fucking reissue that. I'm telling you, if that author is still around, what's he doing these days? He gotta revise that book. Yeah, he never dreamed that you'd have Mr. or Mrs. Good Looking and Mr. and Mrs. Important social media influencer and people compelled to give them things. And before you had the social media influencer, the kids saw these other kids, whether it's girls or dudes, in the school. There's the misfit, the outcast, the loser, and then you have the girls or the guys that everybody loves, that they're compelled to give them things and all that. And you get these other ones out, like everybody knew them that were back in school, Some of them that may have been the girls that were eventually young women or whatever in college, the ones that were always around these other guys that, and then everybody, and a lot of us were kids. We knew about some of these people, right? Kids and adults treated you this way too, whether you were in the school. Certain people, I can speak to you or treat you any way I feel like, and you're not going to do or say shit about it, because guess what? Everybody loves me, and then you're just a lying piece of shit. Or I could even do it in front of a lot of people. Hey, everybody loves me, and you're just shit. That's just the way it is. And that's why some of these kids you don't condone it, that are doing this, they're doing all these damn shootings and everything, which you definitely don't condone. But yeah, you have, like when I was younger, you had people, the kids, that they can do whatever the fuck they please. The bullying, whether it's intellectual or physical. Principals and the school staff don't do shit about it because it's so-and-so's relative. And you got some people, for whatever financial reasons, move to another neighborhood. Everybody knows that, say, if you're in a lesser bracket, if you pay lesser taxes in a new school district or borough, you don't pay enough taxes. Nobody gives a rat's ass. You're just this lesser individual, and even a scapegoat. So there's this pressure to be in a certain class of social class when you're a young kid, so yeah, there's don't matter, there's like a disguise that even the Mr. or Miss Popularity put on, or some of the bullies, and the ones that are the bullies, they're just protecting their little secret, their little smokescreen, their guys. Mommy and daddy really don't got money, they're all fucking debt slaves. And then even the poorer, lesser class kids that, they just got, regular shit jobs. And whether it's free or reduced lunches they're getting, or different financial levels. Mommy and daddy can be a truck driver, but they got credit cards, and getting those clothes these days for kids, the price is rising up. So if you're like barely on a minimum wage or whatever, everything is fucking higher. So it's almost like you're forced, if you got good credit, you're almost forced to be a debt slave. Oh, I almost said death slave. So, but, well, yeah, being a debt slave actually is ultimately preparing you for being a death slave, because if you want to think of it that way, you could do a whole new video on that. But, and at the same time, what I wanted to say at the beginning of this video, I should say, if you got this far, some of the real reasons were, to be fair, this is a touchy subject. It's like, yes, there are people that have good intentions, whether it's in the church or the secular, but people downplay. There's this forbidden thing that anybody as kids, it's taboo. You're not really allowed to say, even though there's a lot of people that have good intentions, but I think it's shrinking these days, that you're not allowed, it's a forbidden, but these kids figure out it when they're depressed. They figure this out, but they're not allowed to speak it. That the real reason that they're born, and even their parents are born, their parents deny this too, but you're basically not only owned, you're basically, how do you know? How many of these people that know, they started out as being babies and they're just an object. They're just born as an object to show off and parade around. Then when you're not a cute little baby anymore, it could go either way. You could be like something that's baggage in their life that they reluctantly have to take care of, or you could be different ways financially, what you're groomed or expected to be, or whatever, one form or another. And if you're in some lesser financial level, like say your parents fight all the time or whatever, I think people in all these other income levels, even in the fucking church, because they're teaching all these people in the churches, especially the ones that the people that watch all the religious TV, the ones that are targeted by religious TV, and are the ones that families that live on credit, like organized religion, TV religion really acts like it gives a shit about everybody, but it don't give a shit about, it wants to reach all the family levels that live on credit, that have the nice cars that's on credit, the debt slaves, and you support their empire with your credit card, that big paper mache sham out there, which biblically, you're not supposed to have kids out of wedlock and everything, right? And it's supposed to preach against lust, but they're no different than the secular moralists, the biggest fucking purveyors of lust. They're teaching that they're using their morality and their religion as a smokescreen for their self-serving horniness. And how many people fucking figure that out? It's like a taboo, even with the secular morality and then the fake-ass big religion. I mean, but yes, there are people out there with good intentions. They want the best for their kids, but what actually is on the rise there too, everybody of different financial levels, or the secular moralism that's putting freaking Teen Mom all the time on fucking MTV, it's another secular type of morality, that you can be a baby and you're an object that parade around. And then when some of these kids, and say anybody say younger than me that's a kid and gets my age, or it's a universal thing that when somebody pulls a baby out, how everybody is expected to act. They're actually expected to do some over-exaggerated, which you ever see some of these kiss asses. It's not like you hate babies, but you notice that if you don't jump around like everybody else, ooh, baby, that you can be considered some kind of monster if you're just, oh, cool. If you're like just calmly like, oh, cool, man. and a cute kid, you don't react enough, you're some kind of monster. So you realize later on, we realize later in life that somebody that has a baby in their hand, they might as well have it like it's a holster. You know how people, whether it's police state or military or somebody or any kind of gangster, a gun on their wall. Instead of a gun, how about they might as well have a baby in a holster? Like have these cartoons like a baby doll or a baby in a holster. It's almost like they might as well, instead of having a gun, have it like a baby in a holster. You better react this way when I have a baby, or else. So everybody, I think, gets their turn being a baby, and it's something to parade around and to demand a type of, whether you call it empathy. You have to have this, everybody makes these fake ass faces, you know. Well, naturally, a baby, you care, you want the best for it, naturally, you know, but there's this pressure that everybody has to react a certain way. But when the cute little baby grows up, it's not allowed to have a mind. It's groomed, you're told, beat over the head, told what to think, what to believe. When you're not a cute little baby anymore, which to you most of the time, how many people that grow up, even people older than me around, say in my town, your town, start out as a cute little baby as a tool, and when you're not a cute little baby anymore, you become, on your way to adulthood, a person with a smart mouth that somebody don't like for some reason. They want to find a way to get you either fired, arrested, evicted, or whatever. Yeah, when you're out of babyhood, you're useless. Your usefulness. Well, yeah, babies are so wanted that people even sell them on the black market like objects, like a thing somebody wants. You see Teen Mom on fucking TV. It's like they're teaching, like having a baby, no matter what, is so important. But then the damn big organized religion, you know, they're using it as they use morality literally as a cloak and a smoke screen to justify a smoke screen to justify their own selfish horniness. Like I call it a selfish horniness because you're taught even in religion a baby as a thing that you want. How many, if you ask people a lot of questions outright, you know, they'll walk away from you if you want to be an asshole about it. It's like a thing that's installed in people's head, even in religion. Yes, you usually want good intentions, all the good stuff. And it says in the Bible, you know, don't fornicate or whatever the hell. And then you get these people, yeah, on the rise that technically how many of us have been actually, that our parents didn't get married right away when they conceived you, you know, it was technically out of wedlock. That's on the rise. How many people really, you want to really count how many people actually had babies within wedlock anymore, and then they got married later. It's just, there's that inevitable thing that if a teenager figures it out, that maybe their thing isn't preconceived like people see on television, that maybe you were an accident and your parents got married because maybe they felt they had to, and then pretty soon they scream, swear, they get drunk, they chain smoke, and work shit jobs, and they're under pressure to actually get you some decent clothes so all the kids don't make fun of you and bully you. You gotta, or whatever the fuck, you know what I mean? So it's like, well, there's a thing about they know what it was supposed to be morally, which is a common sense morality, but yet it's all fake at the same time. You realize, and at the same time, they realize they start out as a baby, right? And it's a thing, you were born because it's a thing that somebody else wanted. You know, it can be a product of whatever moral platform to cloak a selfish horniness. And then the baby is an object to parade and show off in front of everybody. Then from then on, you know, things could metamorphosize according to age, and then some of them realize that what mommy and daddy got now they're going to have to get out there in the world sooner or later, which it's an expanded version of the farm, but yet these kids realize that they're owned, you know, they're property until they're old enough to leave the house. But hopefully if they're fucking old enough to leave the house, they got, I don't know, without no formal education or anything, what are you going to be able to, they can't just walk out like the old West or the old movies that glorified being a bum are not nowhere near true anymore. Now it's all homeless people in caravans living on a beach with needles and booze bottles littering the beaches. In California, certain people can't go to the beach because they might get stuck in a needle by stuck in a foot by a needle or whatever. So, well, that's a ballpark idea of what people do when they go out in the world. You know, these people know that maybe some of them think they're going to go to college and do this and that, or they're poor, or they can get grants, student loans, or whatever. And depending on who you are, it still depends on who you are, who you know, where you go. But the inevitable idea that they're going to have to do all this shit, you know, on their own and everything else, right? But at the same time, it's drilled in some of their heads that they're a monster if they don't go out and have a bunch of babies, whether it's religious morality or secular morality. It's like a debt slave. Reproduce not because it's, I don't know, any with good intentions that are out there. They want you to do that too, reproduce, because then you're a more secured, like, what do you call it, in the eyes of the masters, the true owners of this world. They'd rather have you a debt slave that's actually has kids and have babies, because they can keep you in line more and keep you in fear. But yet at the same time, it leads to child abuse in some cases. But like in some of the shit you try to tell all these kids, like, you don't even say this shit in front of smaller kids because it's shit that they're not old enough for yet. And people go around and say you don't like kids, you know, and that's not true at all. There's some of that shit that you just don't say, you figure it out later, you know what I mean? When they get older, oh boy, you figure it out, you know. Then some of us want to do something and make a difference out there, you know, for some of these kids, you know what I mean? But it's like all that, you just got to look at the video, The Story of Your Enslavement, to really, like, get your head around it. You know, I mean, you're not saying that people don't have no good intentions, but the way the world is going to the toilet, really, you know. And, but I think it's to realize the box they're living in. You know, the video, The Story of Your Enslavement, it's about you can have maybe a freer range pen box, you know, but it's still a box. And then, you know, yeah, you're in a free country. We have a free country that's now is a little less free than it used to be compared to other countries. But like the video, The Story of Your Enslavement says, yeah, they're not preventing you to leave the farm. You can go to another farm, but your choice will be just another farm. And then there's the other thing in parentheses, the illusion of freedom that's created, but everything is actually really rigged. Like the late George Carlin said, they try to act like you have choices, but you don't. Yeah, you have choices to a certain extent, but then there's a lot of people that says your way or else, or it's their way or else, or you'll be thrown out of this job or whatever, or never work it. We'll make sure you never work anywhere ever again, or we'll even have you thrown in a cage. You know, we'll find something to have you arrested for, and you have you thrown in a cage until your attitude changes. Yeah, they do that in other countries there too. But yeah, you're a free range. Your free range box, and different levels of thuggery. That's some of it's not too obvious, kind of, but yet you can sort of, it's done in a very discreet, smug way, you know, not always outright, but
But there you have it. Might as well let this last couple seconds run out till it's exactly 30 minutes long, this video. All right.